Hi guys, good evening. Welcome along to the SFC interviews. Mike Heineman here, joined with Danny Carroll, former Stevenage player. Was also at Farnborough as well, under Wesley. Got some questions for you, Dan. Obviously, we'll have a few joining on the chat because it's all linked through Twitter and Facebook and stuff as well. So, yeah, how you been, Danny? How's things at the moment through lockdown?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been surreal, and trying to do football coaching over Zoom is interesting, but it's a challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely, you just got to embrace it and do what you can.
That's it.
So who's this? We've got somebody in here already. Mearns or Mearns Aidan saying Monda Aberdeen. Must be an Aberdeen fan. All right, mate. So let's have a look what we got here. So let me boot that off screen. I'll do that in a minute, in fact. So first of all, the first question really is, how did it come about, your move to Stevenage? Obviously, you were with Farnborough. You just played the game against Arsenal, the FA Cup game, which I was actually at that game as well at Highbury.
Okay, yeah.
Then the next week or two after that, Graham come across to Stevenage and brought yourself, Steve, Barry, Nathan, and loads of others. So yeah.
I mean, it was such a long time ago. I don't remember everything. I think we were called into a meeting at Graham's offices maybe on the Monday afterwards. Obviously, the game was on the Saturday. And it was interesting because obviously when I got the message, I assumed it was just a whole squad meeting.
Yeah.
So when I got there and there were only some of us there, instantly you're a bit intrigued, like what's going on. And if I recall, he said, I've been offered the opportunity to be manager at Stevenage and I've decided to take it. So that was surprising because
absolutely.
I know there's all sorts of theories out there, like genuinely we knew nothing about it. I certainly knew nothing about it until that meeting. And it was pretty much a case of, because obviously he was chairman and owner at
Farnborough
as well. That's as the
right.
Yeah. So essentially the message was he's left enough money for Farnborough to complete the season, but our wages were not covered in the money that he'd left.
Right.
And he wanted us to go with him, and our contracts would be identical, but they would be with Stevenage rather than with Farnborough.
Yeah.
And so I actually didn't go immediately. I then played for Farnborough at Telford on the following Saturday.
The next game,
in the trophy. Whereas I think most of the others went to Stevenage. I don't know if they played that first one. I can't remember.
No, can I actually?
But I see some of the lads were full-time. So Steve Watson was a full-time footballer for Graham.
Yeah.
So for Steve, he was all right. He's just going to be a full-time footballer at Stevenage. I was a teacher, and where I was teaching in West London, Southwest London, was actually very close to where Farnborough trained, because we trained in Isle essentially off the Great West Road near the offices. So Gillette Corner. So for me, that was perfect because it was 5-10 minutes from work, depending on traffic. Added to the fact that it just felt difficult.
A bit of a strange one to kind of just jump ship straight away.
It was my first season at Farnborough. So by the January, I'd established good relationships with my teammates, and all of a sudden it's time to go. What I couldn't do was afford to play for nothing. I was married. We were buying a house. I needed the money. Now, once I went to Stevenage and signed, I didn't regret it. I loved Stevenage. It was a great move for me. I absolutely understand that the Farnborough fans were very, very unhappy with the situation.
Well, as you would be when
genuinely
the manager's left 6 or 7 players. Like, yeah.
I don't think any of the players who came across really had the choice. You know, for some of them, it was, you know, Barry had given up teaching. It was his living. He was a full-time footballer. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't have been able to stay at Farnborough for no money and no job.
No, for sure.
So it wasn't a perfect situation. I absolutely understand that. But I can hope that even kind of 17 years later, people can understand that it wasn't how we would have wanted to do it, but it was what it was.
Absolutely. And then obviously, you know, the game where the week before was the FA Cup game against Arsenal when you were at Farnborough. What was that like as an experience to kind of be involved in that?
It was amazing. You know, I never experienced that again, which, you know, why would you expect to?
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. I was given 2 weeks off of work leading up to the game. So we went full time for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Everyone did it. So Bunsey, who was a tree surgeon, had his own business. He didn't do that. He was a footballer for 2 weeks. I was very fortunate in that the school said I could have 2 weeks off in the middle of term.
Yeah, and they were able to get cover for you and stuff. Yeah.
Managed to get cover. And so, we went out to La Manga, had a training camp out there, went up, watched Man United train, watched Newcastle train. It was brilliant. And then the game itself was a wonderful experience playing against, at the time, the best team in the country. They were the double holders.
That's right, they were. Yeah.
They were a few months away from their Invincibles season. So it was everything you'd expect it to be. It was brilliant.
I remember I was sat in the Arsenal end, and I remember because I'm Arsenal was my Premier League team.
Okay.
And I think we were singing "We All Believe That Farnborough Are Better Than Tottenham."
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Especially after the Farnborough goal went in when Rocky scored. So yeah. Brilliant moment. Rocky was my roommate.
Okay. At Farnborough. So I was really, really chuffed for him when he scored. Great bloke.
And then he moved to Stevenage a little bit later on as well, didn't he? He followed on a little bit later.
Yeah. He was. I felt he was unlucky at Stevenage. Rocky was a fantastic player. He was the most laid back footballer I've ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. And I think that because he was so laid back, and maybe I think supporters like to see people giving 100% all the time. Yeah, so if you're a forward and you're not having the best day in front of goal, if you're running around working your nuts off, mm-hmm. I think people can forgive you. If you're not necessarily doing that all the time, and don't get me wrong, Rocky did work hard, but there were others who might have worked harder, and I think that possibly went against him a little bit when he had a few games without a goal. And I remember him getting a little bit of stick at Boro for not scoring. So
do you remember there was a game that I went to, and forgive me for saying this, but Stevenage beat Farnborough 5-0, and I think
I played him.
I scored a hat-trick in that game because I was a season ticket holder then, and literally I was only very young, and I'd normally go with my dad or my brother or whatever. But my nan actually come. That's the only time she's ever been to a game, and it was Stevenage Farnborough, and she was sat in the Stevenage end and saw Stevenage beat Farnborough 5-0.
And that was the week before we played Darlington in the third round of the FA Cup. And Darlington, I think Darlington had beaten you quite well, hadn't they? Was it?
They did, yeah.
Was it 4 or something?
3 or 4,
so they'd beaten you 4, and you'd beaten us 5, and so you go up to Darlington thinking, well, we got nothing to lose here.
Yeah.
But I remember that game again. Once we'd moved over, people started saying, "Oh, they threw the match against Stevenage. It was done." Mm-hmm. I can guarantee we didn't, and I can also tell you, Graham went ballistic.
Yeah, he was livid. Yeah,
he went. Doubt. I mean, he did it quite a lot anyway. He would be very, very forthright in how and honest in how he thought everyone had played in every game.
Yeah,
he went mad after that game, and he was right. We lost 5-0. We were awful, and at the time Stevenage were really struggling, so it was a terrible result for us.
Yeah, we were just about 17th, 18th in the table, I think, at that time.
Yeah. Like you were in a bad in a bad way because I think when we joined, you were 21st.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was only like a month later. So yeah, it was from our point of view at Farnborough, it was a really bad result. We were terrible. I can't explain it. We didn't set out to lose, but we were battered and quite right. We trained on the Sunday. He called us into training and we did a
full workout.
Graham session on a Sunday.
Matt there said, what's your favourite goal that you ever scored when you were at Stevenage?
My favourite goal for Stevenage was my header at home to Dagenham.
Okay, was that the victory?
They were on a brilliant run.
Mm-hmm. Was that the 2-0? Did we win 2-0?
We won. It was either 2-0 or 2-1, and I got first. And I can remember Travs was playing left back, and so he crossed it from the left.
Yeah.
Got up, and it was a good header, and we ended their unbeaten record, and it was just a brilliant atmosphere. The crowd was awesome. Yeah, loved it. So yeah, that would be my favourite goal.
He's also just put another one on here as well, saying if Dan had to pick a team made up of players he has played in the same side with, who would you pick?
Oh,
so for each position, goalie through to the strikers.
As in any team or Stevenage players?
Any team. Anyone that you played with, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Tony Pennick in goal.
Yeah.
Who was the Farnborough goalie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Like, put me right on the spot here. I'm going to go Mickey Warner right back, Gregors left back, Jason Goodliff, and Barry.
King Jace.
Barry centre backs.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really selfish and put myself in the team, by the way, because if I'm picking this team, I want to play with them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to go centre mid in there with. I love playing with Sam McMahon. I didn't play with him for very long because he
got that nasty injury, didn't he? Yeah.
So Sam McMahon being there. I'm going to play 4-3-3. So holding midfield, I'm going to say a guy called Frank Coles, who I played with at Bromley, who was next. I think he was a pro at Charlton and played for Dagenham
I recognise the name. Yeah.
Colesy was brilliant. Anthony Elding's got to be in there. He was phenomenal when I was there.
And he left when he left the club. He left on a bit of funny terms with Graham, didn't he? As well, he went with the whole Kettering debacle and that.
Yeah, I see. That was after my time. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but an interesting one. I did play with George Boyd.
Yes, Boydie. Yeah,
Boydie, just either wing, he'd be the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
And the other winger, who would be the other winger? I'm going to go Jamie Cook. And Cookie was an unbelievable player, and I believe he played his best football at Oxford and Boston rather than
at Stevenage.
Stevenage, but he was a fabulous player, and I loved playing with him. And I think if Boydie's on the right, Cookie's on the left, Elding's up front, that's a pretty decent team.
That's a good attack. That's a really good attack, actually, when you look at it. And Anthony was well known for banging in the goals left, right, and centre. And
I've never seen a player strike a ball as clean with both feet as he did. Like the stuff he do in training was a joke.
I'm surprised you didn't stick Dino. Maybe you're going to stick Dino on your bench,
Yeah, Dino can be on it, but I love playing with Dino. I did love playing with Dino. He was a really clever player, and like he was hard. You could play a ball into him, he'd have one or two men round him, and he'd still secure it and hold people off and bring others in. And there's a lot to be said for players like that.
Absolutely, yeah. What's Matt says here? That was from SBFC Warrior, that last one, by the way, not Matt. This one's from Matt.
Yeah.
Who was your favourite and least favourite manager to play under? If you want to answer, you don't have to.
I didn't have a least. I didn't. No, I'll tell you what. I was going to say I didn't have a least favourite manager. There was when I was at Bromley, the manager was a guy called George Wakeling, who's right up there as one of my favourites. I played for George about 4 clubs.
Mm-hmm.
George left to go to Ashford Town in Kent, and we got a guy in to take his place. And I was a young player, and I'd score. I was our top scorer from midfield.
Yeah.
And he just decided he wanted to go with experience, so he put me on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And then very quickly, we got a 7-day approach from Dulwich Hamlet.
Yeah.
That was the time when there was no Conference South, so it was Step 2, Ryman Premier. And Dulwich were managed by my old coach at Palace, Dave Garland.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spoke to Dave. Now I lived in Hayes in Bromley, so Bromley was 5 minutes from my house. I'd gone to watch matches there when I was a kid. It suited me. I loved the teammates there; they were brilliant. Mm-hmm. And he basically said, "No, you can go." So okay, fine. And I went, and I don't regret it because I had a great time at Dulwich as well, and I ended up going back to Bromley later in my career.
That's right, yeah.
But, that manager would be my least favourite. And then I can't split Billy Smith and George Wakeling for my best. I was at 5 clubs with Billy, and 4 of them with George, and they were joint managers for 3 of the clubs. So once I left Stevenage, I had become a director of sport.
Yeah.
And so I was concentrating on my career.
Yeah, moving up through that ladder rather than I
was quite happy to drop down and play for them, and it wasn't about money. It was about playing for 2 guys who I just loved playing for. They were brilliant. They were real players, managers, really old school. And I still speak to George to this day. Billy, I speak to his daughter. Billy's got kind of memory issues, so unfortunately he won't remember me now. But yeah, still speak to George. Probably not regularly enough, but they'd be my favourite, those 2.
Okay, well, Warriors put another one there. Who was the hardest or most physical player that you played against?
So I played against Patrick Vieira.
That's right. Yeah.
One game. So he's probably going to be right up there. Mm-hmm. I would say in non-league. So I played against Steve Watson.
That's right. Yeah.
Steve was very physical, great engine, properly competitive. So I played against him.
Was he given captaincy straight away virtually at Stevenage, or was it still Jay's? I think he was.
He was. He was Graham's captain, and so immediately. And again, like you look at it, I can understand why Stevenage fans didn't like it, but some kind of didn't like him because of it, and it wasn't. He didn't give himself the captaincy.
No, he was given to him. Yeah.
So yeah, he. I know he didn't win some supporters over at all. But yeah, Watto was a real hard physical player to play against. I played against Graham Roberts when he was at Slough.
Okay, yeah.
And he was very old player manager, nowhere near the prime, first division player that he'd been when he was at Spurs. But I hit a 50-50 with him and I knew about it.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
So yeah, there's 3 there.
Okay. Matt said, what's your favourite kit that you've ever worn? You can describe it if you want. Like
favourite kit I've ever worn. I am a Crystal Palace fan. So when I was young, it wasn't an academy when I was young because I'm very old. But when I was in the Centre of Excellence, going through the age groups, obviously you'd wear your club kit when you played. So that was very special to me. I played once for the England non-league team. That was very special to me.
That's right. I did do that when I was going through some stats and stuff earlier. Yeah.
I think in terms of club kit, I really loved the Boro kit from 0203 and 0304. I think we wore the same kit both years.
Yeah, possibly. What sponsor was it?
Oh, now you got me. Sunbank.
Sunbank ones.
He's not looking at his iPad.
Yeah, so they were nice kits, the Sunbank ones. Yeah,
yeah, that was I love that kit. I like the away kit in 0304. It was like Inter Milan. We just didn't wear it very often.
Yeah, it just didn't ever get to really wear it. Yeah. I'll go back to any questions there shortly, but yeah. So, in terms of when you left Farnborough to come to Stevenage, was there any doubts moving to Stevenage with the club fighting the drop, or was it kind of just as you said?
No, not about that. I relished the battle to stay up. That wasn't a problem. Yeah. The kind of the shame of it for me was when you go to a new club, obviously you have to build relationships with people. So I had joined Farnborough in the summer. So I just got to a point where I was in the group and I was, mates with people, getting close to people. And now I've got to do it all over again. And the problem is, it was very different because it wasn't just one new player coming in and everyone accepting him. It was, here's a whole new management team. And by the way, I've got 7 players. Completely understandably, all the existing Stevenage players were thinking, well, am I going to be released for you? Mm-hmm. So it was very difficult, but we got there.
And you played with some good people in that as well. Obviously, Lionel was there at that point. And,
really good characters, really good players.
Is it true that you, I think I read it, that you shared a room with Lionel?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we went out to La Manga in pre-season.
Yeah.
So obviously our first full season.
Yeah.
And Graham liked to mix up who people went with. Mm-hmm. And I got Lionel, and he was brilliant. What a character!
I remember
I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't really want to see him walking around naked in flip-flops all day when we weren't training. But actually, his stories, he was fascinating. He played with Zidane and, been at Bordeaux and Sunderland and Newcastle. I just used to love listening to his stories. He was a fascinating man.
And obviously, there was, he went on to be goalkeeping coach as well, didn't he? So.
Yeah, I think he was assistant manager, wasn't he? And then he
maybe and goalkeeping coach.
Eyes out on the touchline.
The Northampton guy, yeah.
In trouble.
Yeah. Remember that day very well as well. There's more action off the pitch than there was on it.
I tell you what, it was a brave man to start giving him stick from 5 yards away in a dugout because he was double hard liner.
Matt saying he just brought the yellow Sunbank one.
That was a night. That was the first season the away kit. It was decent.
What's he saying there? Did you ever have a sentimental reason for wearing a certain kit number? And actually, that goes back to obviously when you were at Stevenage, you wanted number 7, but number 7 was taken.
So I had no chance of getting 7. So I loved number 7. Brian Robson was my hero growing up. So. And he always wore number 7, and I was very fortunate at Crawley that I got to wear number 7 for 2 years.
Yeah.
And obviously going into the conference with Farnborough, that was the year that names on the shirt and squad numbers.
Yeah.
And Steve Watson at Farnborough was number 7, so there was absolutely no chance.
You're not taking it off, Steve.
So I went for 16 because in my head, stupidly, I thought, well, 1 + 6 is 7. So
yeah.
So I'll go 16. And then when I went to Boro, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was 16 as well. So
I can't remember number 16.
Carroll 16 was fantastic. I like that. It was the only shirt I'd ever had with a name on it. So I wanted number 16, but somebody else had it. And 18 was available because DJ Campbell
just left. Yeah.
Had just gone.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, 8 - 1 makes sense.
That same reason.
I figured myself that 18 was fine.
But yeah, I don't remember at number 16. Warrior might be able to. He's quite big into all of that. He might even be able to remember the majority of the numbers. So.
Somebody else got it. I think Steve got 34.
Yeah, he did.
I think Worms was 7.
Yeah, he was.
And Steve got 3 + 4, and so I then went, all right, 8 - 1.
Yeah, easy enough. So in 2003, obviously, you made your debut against Morecambe. What was that like? for Stevenage?
It was I actually remember bits of that game, even kind of 17 years on.
Yeah, it was 1-1, wasn't it?
I can remember being more nervous than I'd been in a long time because new club and with respect, it was a bigger club.
Yeah.
Crowds were significantly bigger. The stadium was at the time bigger and better. The crowd felt closer. The East Bank with the drum.
East Terrace. Yeah.
East Terrace. Yeah. So it felt bigger. And also I was a little bit worried because I'd strained ankle ligaments against Telford in my last game for Farnborough and been stretchered off. And I had a horrible bruised ankle and Ron Berry had strapped it up I could barely move my foot. I was right-footed. It was my right foot.
That's right. Yeah, because you played centre and right mid, didn't you? Yeah.
So I played centre mid.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was. See, sometimes we played in a 3. Sometimes we played 3-5-2. I think it may have been a 4 because Steve Watson ended up playing on the right.
Okay.
During the end of that season, but I played centre mid. I can remember I was up against Drummond, who was a good player.
Yeah, Stu Drummond. Yeah.
And it was. I remember it being a frustrating game because we were all getting to know each other. So we're a team that's thrown together near the bottom of the league against a team that at the time Morecambe were decent.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a 1-1 draw.
It was, yeah.
Which was probably what we would hope for. I don't mean that sounds silly, but I don't think you can expect to beat Morecambe in your first game with half a new team. And
it was actually one of the ones that come. It was one of the ones that actually come with you that scored that day, wasn't it? As well, was it Baz or Nath? I can't remember.
Yeah, one of the two. One of the two did. I think it was Bunsey. No, Justin Richards. We went to Hereford the next game.
The next week, and you and Baz both
scored. Yeah.
That's it. The 2-2 draw. Yeah,
that was good. And that by then, people were starting to get to know each other and obviously they were getting used to Graham's training methods as well, which were obviously very different to what they'd had. So it was an interesting time for everyone.
What we got on there? Here's one. Who inspired you into being a footballer, and who was the best player that you played with?
As I said earlier on, I loved Brian Robson. I also loved Glenn Hoddle.
Okay,
they were my two favourite players when I was little.
That's what actually Charlie Lee, who I spoke to, said that one of his was Glenn Hoddle as well.
Yeah, amazing player. If Glenn Hoddle was French, he'd have had 150 caps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
and in fact, if he was any other nationality other than English, he'd have had 150 caps. He was an unbelievable player, and it was a real thrill for me when we played Spurs in pre-season when he was the manager.
Right, he was manager. Yeah,
and as pathetic as it was, I was a 28-year-old bloke in awe of, or 27, I think I was at the time, in awe of their manager because he was my absolute hero. So that was a thrill playing against his team. The best player I played with, I'd have said, well, as I mentioned earlier on, Boydie's probably
up there.
Boydie's right up there. I played with Glenn Little as a kid in Sunday football, and Glenn had a great career at Reading, won the championship, and played in the Premier League.
Got the Premier League with him.
Fantastic player, Glenn. So Glenn would be up there. At Boro, the best player I played with, I think, other than Boydie, was probably Sam McMahon. Sam was a terrific player.
Yeah, and obviously Sam was, old Leicester, and
really classy player.
Warrior has said, who was your game when you played for England against England C?
So it wasn't the most awe-inspiring game. It was against the combined services at RAF Uxbridge, and it was in something like May 2002. So it was just before I joined Stevenage. Funnily enough, Graham went to watch, and I was playing with Gary Holloway in the middle of midfield.
Yeah.
It was as much as it wasn't an international, it was a really big thrill, and I loved it.
It's the experience of putting on the Three Lions shirt and going out there. And
at the time, David Beckham was number 7, and I got the number 7 shirt that day. So it was a really big thrill. Unfortunately for me, I think I was 25, 26, and within a season, it was the national game 11 then. Went under 23s, so automatically I was ruled out. And I'm not saying I would have got many more caps, if any, but I was ruled out. So
didn't have opportunity
anymore.
Let's have a look here. We mentioned about the Hereford game. What was it like when you obviously scored your first goal there for the club at Edgar Street?
It was great. It was the only shame of it was that the fans were way over the other side at the far end.
Yeah.
And I scored down that end, down the hill. It was brilliant. I loved scoring goals. I still do. If I'm coaching and the ball drops out to me and I can score, I'll score.
Yeah.
So it was I'd loved scoring every goal I scored.
All right. So you said about Dagenham. They had the 2-0 there. You said about the part-time. So out of the when you come to the club, obviously you come with 6 others as well. Did that make the transition any easier at all? Or
well, it did and it didn't. So it from my point of view, I know 6 people really well, and I also I was driving Bunsey to Stevenage 4 times a week, so I got to know him very well. Notice I did all the driving. And he sat next to me, and we had to play the Rolling Stones on the way up because that was like his favourite music. Once I found out what he liked, that was it. It was always the Rolling Stones. So it helped that I knew other people. It helped that I understood what Graham wanted.
And most of the midfield all came together as well. Obviously, you, Steve, Gary.
Yeah. And then 2 wing backs.
Yeah.
So if you play 3-5-2, like you could field almost the whole 5 from
Barry
and Bunsey back.
Barry and Bunsey, the 2 wingers were Mickey and Justin.
So that side helped, but on the flip side, it was also a problem because immediately and very understandably, the other lads who were already at Stevenage are starting to fear for their position in the squad or the team, and B, not trust us because we're seen as Graham's boys.
Okay.
So yes, it did help, and no, it didn't. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you find it at all weird that he's come on and done another 3 spells since, including obviously the one this season?
No, not really. He has very clearly got an affinity with the club. And he was unbelievably successful in a couple of his spells. And I would include my part in that spell because the club were 21st when he went in, and at the end of that season they finished 12th, I think.
It was 12th, mid-table.
And then the next season we should have pushed for playoffs, and we fell just short, and that was a shame. But fair play to him. The following season, you got to the playoffs and then lost out.
Yeah, lost the final, and
then obviously, I think then Stimo came in, didn't he? And you won the trophy because I went to watch that game. And then Graham was back, and then it all really flew. And I can remember watching you in. I went to the Spurs games, home and away. I went to Reading away in the cup. So I watched a few games that season.
So even just talking about the trophy as well, what you were saying there. Obviously, Adam Miller was part of that trophy side, and I'm going to be speaking with Adam about that tomorrow. So
good player. Good player. I mean, when I was at Boro, he was at Aldershot.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
you could see he was destined for bigger things. He was fantastic.
What we got here? Let's have a look. Well, this is another tricky one for you again. 2002 against combined 11 of players that you played against when you were at Stevenage.
You want me to pick a team of the players that we played against?
Yeah. Well, Warrior does, yeah. Yeah, Warrior does that. Putting you on the spot tonight.
So the best players I played against. Well, Chester were right up there. So
was that when
Darren Clare would play up front.
Yeah.
I hate saying it, but Barnet were very good. So there'd probably be a few Barnet players in there. Like Gower. Gower in midfield was an unbelievable player.
Yeah.
There was, I remember Donny, playing against Donny, and they had a young boy, Paul Green. He was very young against us. And I can remember thinking he's going to go a long way. And he played in the championship for them.
Yeah, midfielder, right or left mid. I remember what side.
I work with a guy called Brian Stock, who was captain of Donny when they were in the championship, and
I remember him as well. Yeah,
he played with Green. Green was excellent. He'd be in there. Blimey. I mean, I played against. Obviously, I played against Boro as well. So Jason Goodliff would be in the opposition.
Yeah,
because he was a fabulous centre back.
About goalies or strikers or anything like that.
Goalkeepers. Wayne Brown was good at Chester.
Yeah.
Very, very good keeper. Ben Smith at Hereford.
Yeah.
Great player, really stylish. So comfortable on the ball. Neil Smith at Woking was decent.
He played for Woking. He played for Woking. He can't be that good.
I loved the whole rivalry with Woking. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
There was a proper buzz when we played.
It looks very much like that's going to be happening again next year. Where that's kind of obviously the situation with what they're in at the moment and getting relegated. But that is one of the things that kind of is a little something nice to have Woking again.
The one little consolation is that you'll get to beat Woking twice. Yeah.
Exactly. We'll get to celebrate some Wokenham's Day again. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. I don't think I've named 11, but I can't think of. So Adam Wilde was a very good winger from when I was at Crawley. Yakubu was good at Barnet.
Yes, he was a good player. I remember it very well.
And then obviously when I played against Farnborough for Borough, then I'm playing against old mates, fantastic players, Lenny Piper, Ross Weatherstone, who came and played for us.
Yeah.
He was a fantastic, obviously had played pro at Oxford and won the conference with Boston. He was great. There's countless players that I played against who were
lots of good names there, yeah. Hi, Ross. If you didn't play football, what job would you do? Well,
I did a job. I was a teacher for 19 years, so I would have been a teacher. PE. I taught PE and English before I gave it up to become a full-time coach. I may have tried to get into coaching instead. Younger, I don't know.
Okay. Hi, Jordan. This guy, Jordan, is an under-18s coach at Chelmsford City.
Oh, brilliant.
So he's just getting into coaching himself. He's done a few six-a-side stuff and that went into 11-a-side, and then he got offered the Chelmsford City role, so he's now with them.
Oh, brilliant. Great opportunity for him.
Yeah. And then we've got, what we got here? So if you could go back to your spell at Stevenage, what would you sort of redo or relive if you were given the opportunity to?
Oh, what would I relive? It's a great question. I'd relive the form that I was in before I got injured in my second season.
That's a great answer as well.
I was absolutely flying, there are just times when I'm at my best,
yeah,
and this is the peak. I felt I was stronger and fitter and faster than I'd ever been, and I ever was again.
Yeah.
And I was playing with excellent players. I was doing a decent job in a very good team. And I was doing it as a part-time player in a full-time team.
That's right. You were the only one, or one of the only few. That,
me and Bunsey and Graham Pearce, the coach. We were the only three. So yeah, I would, if I could redo it, I'd go back to those days, but I wouldn't get a back injury.
Yeah. So with the injury, did that kind of play a part in the way that you left the club, or?
No, it didn't. The only reason I left was because Graham wanted everyone to be full time.
Right. Okay.
And I would have, if I had. I look back at the age of 44.
Yeah.
And I've left teaching now, and I've gone into a job that I love, and I've got it. Football's my passion. Mm-hmm. I'm in a brilliant job now. But I look back now and think, you know what? I should have just gone for it. And he offered me a 2-year deal. The problem was I was on a teacher's salary. So what he really needed to do was add on the teacher's salary to my existing Stevenage salary, and then I could have afforded it. And obviously he couldn't afford that much of a jump. So that was why I left. And the regret is they obviously got to the playoffs the next year. They did really, really well. And I would have loved to have been a part of it, because I was absolutely flying before I'd got my injury. And I was just starting to get fit right at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. So a good pre-season the next year, and I might have had 2 brilliant years.
Yeah, and then that playoff season, obviously, was Hereford, and obviously you've scored against them before, so you probably would have scored against them. Take Dino's role off him that he got. Yeah,
that's right.
He scored the winner that day after Eldin header, and then it was saved.
Yeah, I went to the second leg. I went to the second leg at Boro. Graham very kindly stuck me in the box with his family. So I remember seeing that game.
And then that was the 1-1 when their players score like from 30 yards or something? Danny Carroll.
Yes, Kerry Bertram. Yeah.
Yeah,
another good player.
Dino scored in that day as well. So yeah. What was it like being a teacher but balancing that alongside coaching and playing as well?
A fucking nightmare. It was really difficult. The reason it was really difficult was because of the training regime that Graham had.
Yeah.
So to give you a flavour, during term time, unfortunately for the rest of the lads, they had to do 2 evenings a week to cater for me and Bunsey. Mm-hmm. So on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night, I would leave work at 4 at the end of the school day, dash off. And then
did that ever play a part in? Sorry, Matt. Did that ever play a part in obviously Tuesday night games? Were you able to get afternoons off for that easy enough, or?
Yeah, I did. I never missed a Tuesday game. Ask me about Swansea later. I've got a story.
Okay. All right.
So I'd leave work at 4. I'd get to Stevenage at 6. Mm-hmm. We would start training at about 6:30, if I recall. We'd go on for at least 2.5, sometimes 3 hours, and then we'd have to eat together.
Yeah,
and then I'd have to drive, and it would take me. I mean, I would fly back, but it would take me an hour to get home, and I'd be getting home not long before midnight.
So
and then
really
school the next day.
Yeah, full on days, and then you're back in doing the same again the next day.
So the lads would get a Wednesday off.
Yeah,
I'd be back at work. Bunsey and I would be back at work on the Wednesday. Do a full day at work on the Thursday, do it again on a Thursday night, whereas the lads would have the Wednesday to recover. So that bit was very difficult. And then when it got to the holidays, I had to go in full time. So training was 4 days a week, and you reported at 9, I think, and we didn't get out before 6 very often. Mm-hmm. So it was very, very heavy. So it was difficult balancing it.
Yeah, and then there's this one as well. Was there more pressure being a teacher or playing football?
Totally different pressures. So obviously playing for Boro, the pressure you get is that you've got 2,500 fans in the ground, desperate for their club to do well.
Yeah.
But that's an enjoyable pressure, if you like. Otherwise, you shouldn't be there.
That's the kind of pressure you can easily thrive off.
Yeah. And again, so the job of being a teacher is you've got to add value to every kid in your lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. So I didn't really feel pressure being a teacher. And I enjoyed the pressure of playing football. So, it was probably more intense from obviously the football point of view. But, neither of them really bothered me.
Let's have a look. What have I got down here now for the next one? So obviously in the season where you joined, we finished 12th. What was it like for that season, and getting the run together and being a part of that run?
we got medals from Graham for that run.
Yeah. So you're basically you're all medal winners now then.
Yeah, that's it. We went in, we were second bottom, and I can't remember how many games there were to go.
Yeah,
I just remember it. We picked up a couple of draws and chipped away, and then we went on something like there was a little run that we went on, and it might have been something like 6 games we won in a row, or 6 games that we were unbeaten in a row, or maybe 9. I can't remember exactly, but I just remember Graham focusing on this run, and we've got to keep the run going, and if you can do this and do that, then we'll have achieved our goal. And before you know it, I can remember going to Burton and I scored.
Yeah.
And I think that may have been the game. I could be completely wrong, but that could have been the game where we're now totally safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that was the game that we got the medals afterwards.
Was it?
Which was a very, very surreal moment. Getting a medal for coming 12.
12 in a league of 24 or whatever, 22.
But to be fair, and I was being very flippant there, laughing about coming 12th from where we were was actually a really good achievement.
Oh, absolutely. I've followed that season, obviously, and home and away, and just some of the results were big results along the way as well.
Yeah, the Dagenham game was massive. Yeah. They were unbeaten in about, again, a stupid number, might have been 13, 14 unbeaten, something like that. Mm. And we won it either 2-0 or 2-1. It's a terrific win.
What's he saying here now? George just put, that's what I love about coaching, the pressure, you thrive on it. You can buckle, but if you thrive on it, and when you're successful, it's the best feeling. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And what Jordan mustn't worry about is at this stage in his coaching career, like if you're coaching under 18s, then yes, we want to win every game, but actually, are you making the players better? So in development football, you could play a game and you can lose, but actually, if the players are doing everything you've asked them to do and they're doing it better than they did the week before, well, that's success in a.
And he's always very very philosophical about all of that anyway. And I've done some of his coaching sessions with him and helped him out on them and stuff as well, and met some of the players that he played with when he had his sixer side, which was Ivory United. We've done some sessions, and me and Tom were helping out the goalies while he was helping out with doing some other stuff. So we were all involved in it. So
yeah, brilliant. He's exactly, if you love it, then, and you've got a passion for it, then you're halfway there, because your players will feed off your passion.
Yeah. Have you got any funny moments with Graham that you wish to share, or any awkward ones?
How long have you got? What I will say is Graham treated me unbelievably well. I got my head down and I worked hard, and I didn't cause problems in that regard. And so he would have liked that. That's the kind of man that he is.
Yeah.
I was hungry to go through the ranks and achieve things for him, and therefore he liked that very much. The one, so I can name the Swansea story now.
Go on.
The one time that I couldn't get out of work early, or as early as he wanted, was when we played Swansea away. I think what they were doing was, it was a Friday, and they were training in the morning, having lunch, and then getting the coach to Swansea to get there before the evening. To the hotel. And I had school, and bear in mind, I had quite a lot of kind of, I need to learn. If you had Scarborough away on a Tuesday, I'm leaving early because I've got to get up to Scarborough for a 7:45 kickoff.
Yeah.
So they tolerated lots, and I was very, very, very fortunate that they gave me as much time off as they did. But basically, they said you cannot have the whole day off on the Friday. Like, the morning was academic lessons, and then the afternoons was sport.
Okay.
And I taught English, so my English class needed me to teach English.
Yeah, in the morning.
So I spoke to Graham, and this was obviously well in advance. So once we knew we were playing Swansea, I knew I wouldn't be able to leave until 4:00.
Yeah.
So I had sown the seed.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, I get a message in the week which basically says, if you're not on that coach at 12:00 or 1:00, whatever time it was, if you're not on that coach, you're not starting.
Right. Okay.
So it's second round in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Swansea away. At that time, I'm playing some of the best football I've played, and I'm playing every week.
Yeah.
So I went back to him, and because it was the first time he'd kind of had a problem with me, if you like. And I just kind of said to him, like, I'm not doing this to be difficult, but this is my job. So I don't want to get sacked.
Yeah.
Anyway, he wasn't having any of it. Same again. If you're not on that bus, you're not playing. So I spoke to Barry Laker, because Barry had been a teacher. Barry would absolutely empathise with my situation. Yeah. And Barry went to speak to him, and Barry got a big pie as well.
Oh, really?
So basically, even in the morning, at 9 a.m, I think I got a text saying, I am expecting to see you on this bus. So I politely replied with, I'm so sorry, but I can't. I am working. Yeah. So I ended up getting the train from London up to Swansea. I met them at a hotel, and I got there in time for dinner. They were having dinner, and I sat down. Maybe they'd had the starter. Yeah. And he wouldn't look at me, and I knew I was on the bench from that moment. The minute I turned up, and you know, as you do in football, you shake everyone's hand, you say hello. Yeah. He wouldn't look at me. I knew I was on the bench, and I was on the bench, and I think I got, if I'm lucky, 10 minutes. It might not even been 5. But I went on late in the game, and then in classic Graham style, we're on the train going back, and he comes up to me and he says, "I'll give you a lift home from London. You come. Don't worry about getting a taxi. You come with me." Yeah. So I sat in his car, and he drove me back, and he gave me a little bit of it was part talking to, I feel like you've let me down kind of thing. Yeah. And it was part not apologizing, but it was part, I'm giving you a lift because I could. Yeah. That I still did a bit of a stint for him getting there from work on a Friday. Absolutely. Yeah. So that was my awkward moment with Graham. There were so many funny moments. I can remember a number of different team talks. I can remember going to Darlington with Farnborough in the FA Cup in the 3rd round, and there was snow on the pitch, so we had a snowball fight. And Darlington must have thought, you know, what are this lot? Dog and duck, you know. And then we went and won. Yeah. And
set yourself up nicely for a game at Highbury.
Yeah. But pre-season training with Graham, I mean, there's so much running anyway, but he joined in and he was the best runner.
Mm-hmm.
So we ran around Richmond Park when I was at Farnborough, and you'd set off in twos, and the slowest two would go first, and every 30 seconds another two would start. And the idea, of course, was that you try and beat as many people as you can.
Yeah.
And you'd go gate to gate, and each gate is about a mile away.
Right. Okay.
So 8-mile run. And he would go last, and he would catch up almost everyone. He was a joke at run. He was a machine.
Crazy. That's unbelievable.
It's
really unbelievable. Yeah.
Because I thought I was fit, and then he would go flying past me at the end. He'd always beat me just before the end. It was like, bollocks, he's done me again.
I bet there's one or two times where you managed to beat him, and you've kind of had a few times that you've never beaten him once, no?
No, never beat him. Not in a running race. Long distance. He would do an hour on a treadmill every night, and then he'd do an hour on a cross trainer, and then he'd do an hour on the bike. And when he does things on machines, he does them at top speed. He's not just putting it on at level 10 like most people would. It's level 22, and he's doing it for an hour. So when it came to fitness training, he was ridiculous.
That's right. I know. Right. I've got to keep an eye on time a little bit because I know Luke is going to be around at some point in the not too long future. Yeah. So obviously, what we got here? Yeah. So, what was the most exciting game at Stevenage that you played in?
Another good question. Dagenham at home. That win. Dagenham away the next year. Mm-hmm. That was a really cracking game. Peter Costello scored, if I remember.
I remember him playing.
Cosy scored a good goal. I can't remember the score. I don't know if it was a draw or if we won, but or even if we lost in the last minute. But I remember it being just a fantastic game of football. I remember playing Exeter away a week or two later, and I had a really good game. And
yeah, I think I read about this one. And I think I might even have been there. But
Steve got sent off.
Yeah.
Steve got sent off in the first half. We played with 10 men against, and Exeter were obviously just relegated and one of the favourites to go up. Yeah. So it was a big game, and they won it right at the end. It was gutting. Right at the end, they scored a really good goal. But I remember Jim Briscoe coming in to me in the changing room and telling me how fantastic I'd been, and I just thought, for someone who's supported that club and been at that club for that many years, to take the time to tell me how well I'd played, that really meant a lot. And I was so grateful to him for that kind of man management of his was phenomenal. I was just buzzing off that. That was a massive moment for me personally. I loved that. Yeah,
and obviously Jim was obviously he's no longer with us anymore, but he was a big.
He was Mr. Stevenage, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he was, the Stevenage for League football campaign that was started towards the end of last season was basically based off of him and the rest of the A team that were, his a lot like, people that were alongside him. So
he was a top man.
Let's have a look here. So next one. So obviously, you played with quite a lot at Stevenage and Farnborough. Are there any players that you still have remained in contact with?
So there's quite a few players that I'm Facebook friends with. There's not too many that I speak to very often. Just life gets in the way, and I'm so busy with what I do now that I don't really have the time to have that many phone calls and chats. And obviously, living down on the south coast, I'm not very close to anyone I used to play with either, but. I've got Ross Weatherstone's brother, his first team coach. So if Ross goes down, he works quite a lot in America, and he coaches a team near Oxford as well. So if I catch up with Roscoe, that's great. But
is it? I don't know if it's brother Simon or was that his
Simon Weatherstone? Who came in. In fact, Simon came in when I left.
Yeah, he played at Boro for a bit. Yeah,
that's right. And then I think he may have gone.
I'm quite good friends actually, and sometimes talk to his. I think it might even be his ex-missus. So
yeah. No, Tinners is a top man, so I enjoy seeing him. And then I see. So Steve Watson's boys they're now youth team age.
Yeah.
One's at West Ham, one's at Palace. So if my 16s are playing, because generally the 16s and 18s play at the same venue. Right. So if Bournemouth are playing West Ham or Palace, then I'll see Steve. Jason Goodliff's boy was at Spurs. He's now at Sutton, where Jace is assistant manager, I believe. So when I was at Fulham back in the day, I'd see Jace when we played Spurs. So you bump into the odd person through football.
But you don't really.
A few that I talked to from when I was at Bromley, who are in, like Joe Vines is at coaching at Cray Wanderers. So yeah, there's a few that I still speak to, not too many.
So obviously, one more from here, from Warrior. He said, last one from me. What would you rather win, playing for England and winning the World Cup, or the Premier League, I guess?
Well, I would rather play for England and win the World Cup.
Yeah,
personally, I get that the Premier League's a 38 game marathon, as it were, and the World Cup is a relatively short tournament with fewer games. But for me, playing for your country would be the ultimate, and playing in the World Cup. There's players I played. Peter Crouch, I played with him at Dulwich. Yeah. So he played the World Cup. Steve Finnan, who was a young boy out with Palace, he played in the World Cup for Republic of Ireland. So that's awesome. That inspires me just thinking about that level.
I didn't know Crouchy played for Dulwich. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Crouchy came on loan when he was 18 to Dulwich, and he was a great lad, fantastic. So you see this beanpole turn up, and you look at him and you think, really? And yet, what a fantastic footballer on the ground he was. His feet were brilliant. I wouldn't have said I expect you to play for England or Liverpool or have as many Premier League games as he did. There's no way I would have said that. But you knew he had something in him to play professional football.
Yeah.
But I would never have predicted that he would get to the heights the heights he reached, to coin a phrase. He was my best ever goal. I actually scored for Dulwich off of him. The diagonal from the left back, he nodded it down, and I volleyed it in the top corner from the edge of the box.
Not bad. So you've been assisted by Peter Crouch. It's nice.
Yeah, I actually scored more goals than Crouchy in that spell as well.
That's pretty good. And obviously, I followed him when he was at QPR a bit as well. When he's not someone I'm in contact with. He was only on loan for a couple of months, but it's nice to be able to say that I played with him. And Steve as well, Stevie Finnan. Obviously, we said he was at Liverpool, and
Steve and I were at Palace together. We were both kids, and for a very long time. And he went to Welling United and did incredibly well. He did a YTS there, ended up in their first team, got a move to Birmingham, and never looked back. And had a phenomenal career. Finished his career he went abroad. He was at Fulham, and then.
Yeah, and then did he go to Spain or Italy? I can't remember which. Yeah,
I think he went to Spain. Yeah, a terrific career. So, yeah, I'm really pleased for him because when I was a kid, if you were small, you didn't stand a lot of a chance.
Yeah.
And Steve was pretty small and very technical, really two-footed. And it was such a shame when he got released by Palace because, as he proved, he had massive potential. But he and I, unfortunately for both of us, had very late growth spurts. So we couldn't fulfill our ambitions at Palace.
But then you've gone on to, obviously he's gone on to quite a bit since then. You've gone on to do.
He went on to a lot more than I did, yeah.
But he played in the World Cup and all Euros and all sorts. So yeah,
and that was for someone who was mates as a kid, that was a proud moment for me, and must have been incredibly brilliant moment for him and his family. Awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So let's have a look. Yeah. So what are the what would you say were your thoughts on the current situation? Do you believe the club are going to be able to bounce back?
Yeah, I do. I hope they are. I mean, obviously, it's unprecedented times with the financial situation. So I was chatting to Darren Sarl earlier today, and he's manager at Yeovil.
He's manager of Charlie, who I spoke to the other day. Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly right. And now in a way, he's fortunate because at that level, he's at a big club.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, these clubs are so dependent on the crowds coming in.
Yeah.
So, do I think Stevenage can bounce back? Absolutely. It's a fantastic club. It's a big club for conference level. That has its drawbacks because you'll be the cup final for a lot of teams.
Yeah, definitely.
These smaller clubs like Woking will be really trying to beat you. And so therefore there's a certain pressure and expectation maybe to bounce back. But, Darren's almost done it and he still might do it. He's in the playoffs.
That's right. Yeah.
So he might bounce back and get Yeovil up at the first time of asking. There's no reason why you can't do it at Stevenage.
Obviously, with Alex as well, he's obviously new to management, but he's got Lenny there to help him out. So
yeah, and I wish him the best of luck. I played against him when he was at Braintree, and then followed his career when he went into the pro game. He wouldn't remember me at all, but I hope he does a really good job. Getting Lenny in there is a great move. Really experienced. There is no more experienced manager. So yeah, fingers crossed. If you can get back in and if you've got crowds, then the place could be bouncing again. Absolutely.
And then obviously, the new stand and everything's all complete now. So that the stadium's complete now. It's the complex, the stadium. It is a very high end conference. It's a football league standard.
It's a football league setup, without a doubt.
Yeah,
and the training ground. So when Darren was obviously, I coached at Brentford when Darren was youth team manager, and I ended up assisting him for a period of time, and he did the 18s and the reserves. Mm-hmm. And so when he was the manager at Stevenage, I went in and 1 year and watched for a couple of days when he was doing pre-season. Mm-hmm. And he's a fantastic coach, but the training ground blew me away. It's a terrific setup, and I'd love to go back there sometime. Obviously, it's a very long way from down in Bournemouth, but I'd love to go back and see the ground complete because it was a great ground to play at conference level, even when the North Stand wasn't done. So yeah, it must be fantastic now.
And yeah, it looks amazing. And yeah, there we go. He said that. Smaller clubs like Woking. There you go. Someone's loving that one. Well, we're all loving that one, but someone's actually commented it. I was thinking it. He said it. Yeah. So obviously we've said about that. I think we're probably virtually done, to be honest. Yeah. Just kind of currently at the moment. The only other thing is, what are your thoughts on the games being played behind closed doors, or the Premier League games and stuff? That's the only other one.
It's frustrating. I feel for every supporter of the clubs at all the levels, because we just want to be watching games. I'm very fortunate. I get to watch Premier League football at the moment, hopefully next season as well. But I get to watch Premier League football every other week. Or I did until this business, and now I can't get to the matches I'm watching on TV as well, as a member of staff. So it's a real shame. I feel for the players as well, because they're playing in front of far, far bigger crowds than I did. But I know playing in front of 2,500 can be a massive buzz. So
it's just strange. Like even
nobody wins apart from just getting this Premier League season finished, and then hopefully we can return to some form of normality at some stage next season, be it September or whenever.
Yeah, it's just strange. Obviously, what I was going to say is obviously the playoffs and all that are taking place in the lower leagues, but then there's teams like Stevenage who, they're because of the points taken off by Macclesfield, they've still got a game in hand, and they're only 2 points off getting out of relegation.
Yeah, it's a horrible way to go down.
Yeah.
And at the same time, across the season, up till that point, was it 3 wins all season, something like that?
3 wins, and when Westy come, when Alex come in, he was the 4th manager. So
yeah, so it's just been a difficult. Let's put it down as a difficult season. It's been a difficult season, and it's kind of been summed up by the way that the club went down. Really, it's a horrible way to go down. I'm biased. I don't think it's fair. I don't think Macclesfield have been punished appropriately under the circumstances. I'm probably bound to say that because I would always want Stevenage to do as well as possible. But at the same time, the club haven't had a very good season. So if it means going back down to come back up, I'm sure that you've got the right people in charge. And the one thing I know about Phil Wallace is that he is a very, very driven and a very, very good chairman. So I'm sure that
and they
and Len will get you back up.
Yeah, and they pretty much prepared everything already. There's about 22 players that have just been released, and I think they've already signed 2. They're getting the signings in nice and early as well. So
yeah, and now's the time because it's interesting times, which might work out better in terms of I think that players will end up on less wages, and therefore that eases the burden somewhat as well. Clearly, I'm not party to anything at Boro in terms of what the finances are like now, but it will be a little bit easier than it would have been if they'd gone down when everything was normal and all the crowds were in and wages kind of were as they were. And I might be wrong, but I imagine that wages must be slightly lower for next season.
I'm sure that
in non-league in general, it must be, because at the moment that there's every chance that season might start with no fans.
Yeah, 100%. And talking to the fans as well, the latest thing is season ticket holders who are, I'm not a season ticket holder anymore, but the ones that still are, have basically, a 94% of them have basically put the rest of their season ticket value, what would have been, or the games that they would have seen, back into the club. So that's obviously going to help.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And a lot, I know that's happened at my club where I work at Bournemouth as well, that fans have done that. I know in other clubs they have, but that money going back into the club helps to save the club, and I don't know where it will be redistributed to at Boro, whether it's the academy or if it's into the first team for next season. But if it goes into the academy, then that's producing players. Boro has a brilliant record for producing players.
Oh yeah, Boyd,
loads of them going back to Boydie's time, and obviously going down, you keep your academy for, I think it might be 2 seasons, but then if you don't go back up, you lose the funding, and it would be such a shame because Stevenage is a really well respected Cat 3 academy.
Yeah,
Robbie O'Keefe's a mate of mine. I see Robbie. I go on. We go on football tours that he runs with my under 16s, and so I see Robbie every year, and he's a top man. And I really hope that it doesn't have an adverse effect on the academy.
Yeah, definitely. And then even going back to what I said to you off stream earlier about the stuff I do with Minds, they're linked in with the academy as well, with the Get Set to Go programs and things like that. So
yeah. So yeah, the fans giving the money back is unbelievable, isn't it? What a brilliant gesture. That's proper supporters.
Absolutely, yeah. And then we have 1 second. Let's hope we spend the money on players to get us up. Yeah. And then one final question there as well. What was it like to work with
Carl Fletcher?
Yeah.
Carl Fletcher is one of the best coaches I've ever seen. Carl Fletcher is one of the most driven men I've ever seen. And I've learned so much from working with Carl Fletcher. It's an education. He doesn't take that. So when I first went there, he was a youth team manager, and I assisted with the 16s part-time when I first moved to Dorset, and I learned loads. And then by the time I started going there full-time, three years later, Fletch was the under 23s manager.
Okay.
So I didn't see as many of his sessions, but we still help out with some. So I assisted with some of his sessions, and again, a real education. And now he's the loans manager, so I don't get to watch him coach, which is a shame because he's fantastic. But one of the most driven men, he's not someone you definitely want to be in the trenches with him, and you definitely don't want to let him down. And
then obviously, with Bournemouth, have you been in sort of much contact there with Eddie Howe at all? Have you said any,
So yes. I see him a couple of times a week at academy training because his son's in the academy.
Okay. And do they kind of produce a lot of academy players to come through into the first team? I'm not really sure.
Not masses is the answer. Not masses, but Gavin Kilkenny's broken through into the squad this season and played in the Carabao Cup. They've got Kyle Taylor played in the FA Cup last season. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few players who are bubbling underneath the surface, if you like, and so Sam Surridge has had a couple of really good.
He was older as well, and
scored against Arsenal in the FA Cup.
Yeah,
but they're also very good at buying young players. So Ramsdale they brought in, Mark Travers they brought over for the youth team, goalkeeper. He played last season against Spurs. So some have broken through, not as many as possibly, as academy coaches, we want to produce as many as possible, but there's definitely a pathway there. But we're trying to produce players for the Premier League. It's really difficult. The standard's unbelievable.
And then he just wants to know: is Carl back with Bournemouth at the moment, or has he moved on?
Yeah, he's loans manager.
And then obviously the final one, obviously just with Bournemouth as well, is obviously the situation with Ryan Fraser. Do you know an awful lot about that?
I just know what Eddie has said in press conferences, which is that he hasn't signed an extension to the end of June, after the end of June, and therefore won't play for the club again. So it's a real shame because we're in a tricky spot and we could do with all of our players. But I understand why he's making his stance. He might well get a really good move out of it. I'd prefer he played for the first team, but he's made his choice.
Yeah, 100%. That's it then. So thanks for coming on tonight, Danny. And
no problem. Thanks for having me.
No worries.
Cheers, mate. See you later.
Take care. All right, mate.